الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. To proceed, today's lesson بإذن الله تعالى, we want to continue our discussion of المفاعيل الخمسة, or the 5 different types of objects. In our previous lesson we spoke about المفعول به, and المفعول به is one that we're all familiar with, right? Because المفعول به is the third non-mandatory or required part of الجملة الفعلية. If we say, for example, أكل الولد خبزا, أكل الولد خبزا, خبزا is the المفعول به, and المفعول به is always mansubun, and the indicator that it is mansubun is al-fathatu, right? Which will either be al-dhahiratu, apparent, or it will be al-muqaddaratu, or it will be assumed to be there. In this lesson we want to look at the second type of al-maf'ulu, which is named al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq. Al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq. So what therefore is al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq? The first point that we need to understand is that al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq is in essence, or al-asl, the origin is al-masdaru. It is al-masdaru. I'll write that. Al-masdaru. Al-masdar, right. What does al-masdaru mean? Literally. Literally it means the source or the root. Right? That's amusing, Muhammad.
Because I thought of mustard when you said it.
Al-masjid. No, not al-masjid, al-masdaru. Now, what does it mean in practice? If we have a fi'lun such as he ate, how do we say he ate?
Akalta. No.
He ate.
Akala.
Akala. Akala. He ate. And we want to say the boy ate the bread. Akala al-waladu right. Akala al-waladu khubzan, which means the boy ate bread. If it was al-khubza, it would be the bread. So this sentence, al-jumlatul fi'liya, means the boy ate bread. Now, this here, khubzan, is al-maf'ulu bihi, the first type of al-maf'ul object that we already understand. We're speaking about the second type, al-mutlaq, and we said that the root form of al-mutlaq is al-masdar, and that too does mean root or source. What that means is that where you have a fi'lun such as akala, meaning he ate, in order that we use al-mutlaq after akala, we need al-masdar of al-akala. What is al-masdaru of akala? Well, it is the ismun that represents the action of the verb. So it's the ismun that represents the action of the verb. The verb is akala, he ate. So the ismun that represents that action is eating, right? It's eating. Which word in Arabic is an ismun and means eating? Remember, وَأَنَّ الْفِيرَانَ تُحِبُّ أَكْلَ الْحَدِيدِ. Remember that sentence that we did? That and the mice love eating?
The
Ayn. So the al-masdar of akala is aklun. It is aklun. Hasanan, right? It's aklun. That is an ismun, right, Rajana? That's not a fi'lun, is it? That's an ismun. We know it is an ismun because it has an indicator for being ismun, which is a tanween. So aklun means eating. It's not a fi'lun, it is an ismun that represents the action of the verb. So the action of the verb is he ate. What is the ismun that represents that action? It is aklun. Aklun. And therefore it's separate or disconnected from any type of period. Not past, not present, not future. And because this is al-masdaru, it can therefore qualify as al-maf'ul mutlaq, and we place at the end aklan. Aklan. So the sentence therefore becomes akala al-waladu khubzan aklan. Right? Or is that clear? Right? So khubzan is al-maf'ul bihi, but aklan is al-maf'ul mutlaq, and its meaning that it conveys is of one of eating. So therefore, in effect, what we are saying is the boy ate bread eating.
one of the brothers are going to knock on the door now.
Sorry?
Lock's going to knock on the door.
Right.
Just letting you know. Is it for emphasis?
Yeah, it's for emphasis. Right? Akala al-waladu khubzan aklan. Right? Yeah, Muhammad, what does this sentence mean? Akala al-waladu khubzan aklan.
The boy ate bread eating.
Right. That is al-maf'ulu bihi, that is al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq. Another example. Shariba. What does shariba mean? Right. Shariba. Shariba al-waladu, the water is
Ma'an.
al-ma'a. Why is it al-ma'a mansubun? Because it's al-maf'ulu bihi, and the al-maf'ulu bihi is always right, it is always mansubun. Now, we want to say that the boy drank the water drinking.
Is that sharban?
Sharban. Right. Why? Because sharban or sharbun is al-masdar of shariba. So it's an ismun that represents the meaning of the action. The action is he drank. What is an ismun, a noun that represents that meaning? It is sharban. So we can therefore place sharban here, and that becomes al-maf'ul al-mutlaq. Right? Is that clear?
So, does the maf'ul al-mutlaq always come after maf'ul bihi?
No. The al-maf'ul mutlaq, not that it will always come after al-maf'ul bihi, but in general it will always come after al-fi'lu. Now, of course, the maf'ul bihi doesn't have to be there. We could have said akala, akalan. Or how do we say I ate?
I is
Kaltu aklan. Aklan. Akaltu aklan. I ate. Aklan, eating. Now there's no al-maf'ulu bihi, is there?
no.
We've got the fi'lun, akala. We've got the fa'ilun, to, and we've got أكلا المفعول المطلق. There is no المفعول به. Similarly, if we want to say I drank, drinking, it becomes شربت شربا شربت شربا. Right? So there's no مفعول به here. That means I drank, drinking. So the first point to understand regarding al-maf'ul al-mutlaq is that it is al-masdaru. There is an exception to that, as always. But for the time being, accept that it is always al-masdaru. And it is therefore derived from the fi'lun.
Is that word also called a nominal verb or something? Or is that different?
You're thinking about the verbal noun, yes. Right.
Same thing?
Yes. Now, the other point to note is that there's two types of al-masdar. Either there is al-masdar lafzi, where the al-masdar is derived directly from the verb, such as those two examples, akala akalan and shariba sharban, or al-ma'nawi, in meaning. And for example, if we said he stood, how do we say he stood? What's the verb he stood? He stood. Actually, we could use he sat. What's the verb he sat?
Jalasa.
Right. Jalasa. Jalasa. He sat. We want to say he sat sitting. He sat sitting. What is al-masdar of jalasa?
Jalsan.
It's julusun. So it therefore becomes julusan. Jalasa julusan. Right? Jalasa julusun. Julusun in the marfu'un form is al-masdar of jalasa. Now there is a difference of opinion amongst the grammarians. Did the verb come from the noun, or did the noun come from the verb? But that's not relevant to us, right? The point to note here is julusun is al-masdar of jalasa. But there's two types of al-masdar, as I said. Either there's the one which is lafzi. This is lafzi, meaning al-masdar, its lafz is derived from jalasa. Can you see? The jeem, the lam, and the seen from jalasa. Al-ma'nawi, meaning that you convey the meaning of the fi'lun, but using a different al-masdar. Right? So we could say jalasa, he sat, qu'udan, qu'udun, oh, it would be qu'udan. Right? Qu'udan is from qa'ada. Qa'ada means he sat. Qu'udan therefore means sitting. Right? But note to note that qu'udan here is al-masdar al-ma'nawi, because you convey the same meaning as al-fi'lu, but you're not using the al-masdar that is derived from al-fi'lu, are we? We're using a different one. Right? Another example, which I was going to mention first, which you're probably more familiar with, is he stood. How do we say he stood? Qama. Qama, he stood standing. What's standing? Qiyam. Qiyaman. Right? Qama qiyaman. Right? Now there's another word for standing. Waqufan. Waqufan. From waqafa. right? So there's al-masdar al-lafzi, there is al-masdar al-ma'nawi. Now, the other point to note, right, so all this is an affirmation of what we've already mentioned. We're just affirming by way of al-masdar and ismun the action present within the fi'lun. Now, what else can al-masdar be? These are all examples where it is indefinite, but al-masdar can also be definite. Like the ayah towards the end of Surah Al-Ghashiyah. فَيُعَذِّبُهُ اللَّهُ فَيُعَذِّبُهُ اللَّهُ الْعَذَابَ الأكبر عذاب فيعذبه الله العذاب الأكبر. Right, this ayah that we hear usually every Friday, what does it mean? حرف عطف يعذب. What does يعذب from عذب? He punishes, right? He punishes. So that's the fi'lun. Who is a damirun muttasilun, it's connected, and who here is the
person getting punished,
which is the maf'ulun bihi. Allahu al-lafdhu al-jalalah marfu'un fa'ilun. Allah Azza wa Jalla is a fa'ilun. So you've got your fi'lun, fa'ilun, maf'ulun bihi. Right? فَيُعَذِّبَهُ اللَّهُ. Now, al-adhab here is our al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq. Right? And then we have al-akbara, meaning the great, right? So severe punishment. فَيُعَذِّبَهُ اللَّهُ al-adhab al-akbara.
Is that sifa of adhab?
Sorry?
Is that sifa?
Yes. Is that clear? Similarly, the ayah, well, is that clear in meaning? Its purpose here.
Yeah.
Right? You can also have al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq as an al-idafah. Right? Al-idafah. Remember that concept. So for example, in Surah Al-Ahzab, where Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَا تبرج الجاهلية الأولى. Right? لا تبرجنا. What does that mean? تبرج الجاهلية الأولى. ولا تبرج تبرجنا تبرج تبرج الجاهلية تبرج الجاهلية الأولى. Right, لا تبرجنا. تبرجنا means to beautify yourself. So Allah Azza wa Jalla is speaking to the women that when you exit, لا تبرجنا. Right? So that's a command form. لا تبرجنا. You do not exit in a beautified state. Then Allah Azza wa Jalla said تبرج. Right? تبرج الجاهلية. That تبرج here is المفعول المطلق. Right? Because actually that's تبرج. Yeah, no, that's correct. تبرج الجاهلية الأولى. The adornment of al-jahiliyyah, the period of ignorance, before al-Islam, al-Ula, the first. That should be a dhamma there. تبرج الجاهلية الأولى. Right? So here, al-adhaba al-akbar was a sifa. Right? So we have al-adhaba and then we have al-akbar as-sifa. Sifa and al-mawsuf. Here, tabarruja is the mudafun in al-idafah. Right? Is that clear? So, the first purpose, therefore, of al-maf'ul al-mutlaq is what? Its purpose is at-tawqeed. The first purpose is tawqeed. What does at-tawqeed mean? Affirmation. Right? So, the ayah in Surah An-Nisa that we've mentioned frequently. Allah spoke to Musa alayhi salam speaking. What's that ayah? What? كلم الله موسى تكليما. تكليما. تكليما is al-masdar of kallama. In fact, there's more than one al-masdar of kallama. But the point to note here is kallama is al-fi'lu. Does that look like al-fi'lu al-mudari? Al-madi. That is al-fi'lu al-madi. Kallama. Kallami means he spoke. Right? Kallama means he spoke. Fi'lun madin. Allahu is al-fa'ilu, the one who is doing the speaking. Musa here, Musa is the maf'ulun bihi. Now here's a question for you. If Musa is al-maf'ulu bihi, وعلامة نسبه, what is علامة نسبه? What's the indicator of it being mansoob?
Alif maksura.
Not the alif maksura isn't the indicator. It's al-fathatu here. But is it al-dhahiratu? Is it apparent?
No.
No. Why is it not apparent?
It's hard on the tongue.
No. They say منع من ظهورها التعذر. التعذر is excused from appearing. Why? Because al-alifu al-maqsura. Al-alifu al-maqsura does not accept any harakatun. Does it? Remember? That's from our Jurumiyya lesson. So therefore you say it is al-fathatu al-muqaddaratu. It's assumed to be there, but it's not. Right. So, وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى. Allah spoke to Musa. Right, this ayah in Surah An-Nisa. Actually it's not. It's the end part of the ayah. Right? Now the other point to note about al-maf'ul al-mutlaq, in addition to the fact that it is al-masdar and then it's either al-ma'nawi or al-lafzi, is it is what we call fadlatun, superfluous. Meaning, if it's not there, then it doesn't matter. You know the previous examples that we mentioned, akaltu aklan, sharibtu sharban. If we removed al-maf'ul al-mutlaq on the end, would it make a difference to the meaning? No. Right? So, one of the conditions of the correctness of al-maf'ul al-mutlaq is that it's superfluous, it's not required. So if it's not required, why did Allah Azza wa Jalla say takliman? Why did he say وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا?
To emphasize that it actually happened.
Right. In order, as Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentions a very nice point in his book As-Sawa'iq al-Mursalah, in his refutation of Al-Jahmiyyah, he mentions that here when Allah Azza wa Jalla said takliman, he did so in order to remove any doubt whatsoever that the method that he used in order to communicate with Musa alayhi salam was by speaking to him. So it wasn't through an intermediary, it wasn't through inspiration, it wasn't through a dream, it wasn't through any of the other methods, it was directly to affirm the speech of Allah Azza wa Jalla. This ayah, or this portion of the ayah, affirms one of the attributes of Allah Azza wa Jalla that the Jahmiyyah denied. Right? So here, takliman is an addition, but it serves a very important purpose too. Right? So at-tawqid is the first use of al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq. Right? So if we want to say, for example, the mouse jumped, jumping. Right? What's the word for he jumped? Qafaza. 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 What's the word for the mouse? We know this.
Story.
Al-fa'ru. Al-fa'ru. Qafaza al-fa'ru. Jumping.
Fahzan.
Qa.
Oh, qafzan.
Qafzan. Qafzan. First use at-tawqid. Right? Now, the second use of al-masdaru is bayanu naw'ihi. Bayanu naw'ihi, which means to clarify the type. Bayanu naw'ihi. Naw'ihi. Clarify the type of al-fi'lu which was performed. Right? To clarify the type. And we have already seen two examples of that. Right? So whenever we have al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq, which is mawsufun or mudafun, then we know that it is bayanu naw'ihi. For example, the ayah that we hear all the time, one of the three ayat in al-khutbah al-hajj in Surah al-Ahzab, وَمَن يُطِيعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَقَدْ فاز فوزا عظيما. عظيما. فقد فاز. So the ayah is وَمَن يُطِيعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ, that whoever is obedient to Allah and His Messenger, فَقَدْ, remember qad here is harfu tawqid, indeed faza. What does faza mean?
To give.
To give?
To receive.
To receive. No, he faqad faza, he succeeds, or he succeeded, fawzan, a success, adhiman, that was great. Right? Remember, one of the most important indicators of learning Arabic, particularly in the West, to demonstrate your progression is your understanding of Al-Quran. فَقَدْ فَازَ فَوْزًا عَظِيمًا. Here, where is al-maf'ul wal-mutlaq?
Maf'ul al-mutlaq is fawzan.
Fawzan, right? How do we know in this instance it is not a tawqid but it is bayanu naw'ihi?
Doesn't matter the position of where it is.
No, well,
I think if it's at the ending or...
but it's not going to come at the end, because adhiman here is the sifatun, isn't it? Adhiman is the isman that describes the fawzan, doesn't it? Right? So, because we have al-maf'ul al-mutlaq here, fawzan, and then we have a sifatun of fawzan, what does it mean? It means it's describing or clarifying the type of fi'lun which is performed. So what was the action that was performed here? Faza.
Success.
He succeeded. Right? Allah Azza wa Jalla could have just stopped there. فَقَدْ فَازَ. And it would have conveyed the meaning of being successful. But it's not just an ordinary success, is it? Success that is obtained through following and being obedient to Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That isn't just an ordinary success like a success in an examination or a test. That is fawzan adhiman. That's the greatest success, because it grants you passage in the hereafter, right? That's why it's fawzan adhiman. And we know it is bayanu naw'ihi because we have a sifatun after the al-masdaru al-maf'ul mutlaq. Whenever you have al-maf'ul mutlaq, which is either followed by a sifatun or it is the mudafun in a mudafun ilayhi, then it is bayanu naw'ihi. Right? Like the ayah that we just mentioned in Surah Al-Ghashiyah. فَيُؤَذِّبَهُ اللَّهُ الْعَذَابَ الْأَكْبَرَ. Right? There you have al-adhaba and al-akbara. So we have al-adhaba, the punishment, then al-akbara, the great. So we know that is bayanu naw'ihi.
What does bayanu naw'ihi mean again?
Bayanu is a clarification. Naw'ihi of its type. Naw'un is a type. Naw'ihi, its type. But the it that it's referring to is the fi'lun. Because the fi'lun, faza, means he succeeded. So what type of success did he acquire? He acquired a success which is
Great.
adhiman. Okay? But because we have al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq here, right, that's then followed by a sifatun, we know that that type of al-maf'ul al-mutlaq is bayanu naw'ihi. Right? So to repeat, whenever you have al-maf'ul al-mutlaq, which is also mawsufun, meaning you have a sifatun after it that describes it, then it is bayanu naw'ihi. Right? So, we want to say now, we want to mention an example of al-maf'ul al-mutlaq, which is now mudafun. So you also have a mudafun ilayhi. Right? Like that ayah that we just mentioned, where Allah Azza wa Jalla said, La tabarrajna tabarruj al-jahiliyyati al-ula. Do not exit the exiting, do not exit in a beautified state, the beautification of the period of Jahiliyyah. So we want to mention by way of an example where we have a mudafun as our al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq. So we want to say that the boy ate the eating of a hungry person. No, not a hungry person. We'll say the boy ate the eating of a lion. Right? So how do we say the boy ate?
So akala
Akala
al-waladu
al-waladu. Now this is where it becomes slightly difficult. We want to say eating of a lion.
So akla
Good, ya Muhammad.
and the line is as-did
Akala
or al-asdu al-asdi.
Right. Good. Akala al-waladu akala al-asadi. Right? So, now, where is our al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq? Ya arajanu. Akala.
Yeah.
Right? But it's also mudafun, isn't it? That is an idafatun. Isn't it? Right? So we have mudafun and mudafun ilayhi. Right? So therefore, because our al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq is mudafun, it therefore qualifies as bayanu naw'ihi, a clarification of its type. Meaning, when that boy ate, what type of eating was it?
Eating of a lion.
The eating of a lion, meaning it was ravenous, right? So he ate the way that a lion would eat. That's why we phrased akl al-asadi as eating of a lion. Right? So whenever we have al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq, which is either mawsufun, which is it is here, meaning we have a sifatun after it, or it is mudafun, meaning it's the first noun in an idafa, then it is bayanu naw'ihi. Bayanu naw'ihi. Right? Is that clear?
No.
Therefore, the third and the final type of al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq is what? Bayanu adadihi. Bayanu adadihi. Bayanu adadihi. What does bayanu adadihi mean? Bayanu means clarification. Adadun means a number. Adadihi means its number. Right? So for example, we want to say, I performed 1 ruku. How do you say, what's a verb for he performed ruku? He bowed. Raqa'a. Right? So it becomes raqa'tu raq'atan. Raq'atan. Raqa'tu means I perform ruku. Raq'atan means one ruku. Right? That is al-masdar, raq'atan, from raqa'a. Right? But here, is it a tawqid? No. Is it bayanu naw'ihi? No, because it's neither mawsufun nor is it mudafun. Is it bayanu adadihi? It's number, yes. Because raq'atan relates to 1 ruku. Right? If you're going to say, I performed 2 sujood, How do you say what's the verb for I perform sujood?
Raka'tu.
Sajada.
Sajada ya Muhammad. Right? Sajadtu. Sajadtu. Right, what's the al-masdar of sajada? What's the word for a prostration?
Sajdan.
Sajdatun, right? The word is sajdatun. We want to say two. How do you say two of these?
Sajdatani.
Right. Ordinarily, it would be sajdatani. Right? But here, remember that our al-maf'ul wal-mutlaq has to be mansubun. Is that mansubun?
No, it'd be a sajdatayni.
Right, it would be sajdatayni. Sajdatayni. Sajadtu sajdataini. Sajdataini, meaning two sajda, is now in the mansubun state. And the indicator that it is in the mansubun state is what, ya Muhammad?
The ya.
Al-ya'u here. Before it was the alif for the marfu'un state, right? Sajadtu sajdataini. So here is an example where we're using al-masdar in the singular and in the dual form to explain or clarify the number of the fi'lun. But you could also use a number itself, right? If you wanted to say, for example, the boy walked around the park 3 times.
Masha.
Masha, good ya Muhammad. Masha. Right. Masha.
Al-waladu.
Al-waladu.
Qassi. I can't remember.
Around is hawla. Hawla. And what's the park? Al-hadiqa. Al-hadiqati. Right. So far we have Masha. Al-waladu. The boy walked. Hawla. Around. Al-hadiqati. That is also, hawla is dharful makani. And that's an idafa, which is why that's majroor. So I have the boy walked around al-hadiqati.
Park.
Right? 3 times. What's 3?
Maybe male, so you'd say
Good, I like that. Thalatha. Thalatha.
would it be kasra?
Why would it be a kasra?
Oh, you want to say 3 times?
Yeah. 1 time is marratun, marratun. 2 times is marratani. So 3 times is?
Marrati. Or marratuni.
Maratun. Thalatha. Maratin. Thalatha maratin. Now, where is our al-maf'ul al-mutlaq in this sentence?
Is it the last one?
Maratin.
No, that's
No,
not
sorry.
the last one.
Remember now, this example is to clarify bayanu adadihi.
It's the number 3.
It's the 3. Why else would thalatha be mansubun? There would be no reason for thalatha to be mansubun except if it is al-maf'ulu al-mutlaq. Because remember, al-maf'ulu mutlaq, like all the other al-mafa'il, are all mansubun. Right? So in our first example, we said raka'tu rak'atan. Raka'tu rak'atan. One rak'ah I performed. Then we said sajadtu sajdataini. I performed 2 sujood. Now we're saying 3. We're actually using the number 3 to refer to what? Bayanu adadihi, clarifying the number of it. Masha, he walked. How many times did he walk? Thalatha maratin. 3 times. That could be any number, but whatever word it is that corresponds to a number, it must be in the mansubun state in order for it to qualify as al-maf'ul al-mutlaq. Right? These are the 3 most commonly used functions of al-maf'ul al-mutlaq, either a tawqid or an affirmation, or bayanu naw'ihi, clarifying its type, or bayanu adadihi, clarifying its number. Now, why is al-maf'ul al-mutlaq so important? Because it is frequently used in Al-Quran. Frequently. Particularly in the latter part. Towards the end of Surah Al-Fajr. Kalla idha dukkatil ardu dakka. Right? Kalla idha dukkatil ardu dakka. No, rather when al-ardu is demolished. Dakkan. In a demolished state. Right? In Al-Haqqa. وَحُمِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ وَالْجِبَالُ. When al-ardu, the earth, and al-jibalu, the mountains are raised. فَدُكَّتَ دَكَّةً وَاحِدَةً. Then they're destroyed by a single strike. The point is that al-maf'ul al-mutlaq is used frequently throughout Al-Quran, particularly in the latter section. So it's important to be aware of it. Fahimtum? Right. Are there any questions relating to that?
What does it mean? Like mutlaq. What is it actually?
Al-mutlaq, it means absolute.
Absolute.
Yes.
So
in effect what you're saying,
the object of absolute.
yes. But in English it doesn't make sense. In Arabic it doesn't make sense. Why? Because what you're saying is, like that example, akaltu aklan, I ate, eating, meaning that was my absolute action. In English it makes less sense. In Arabic it makes more sense, because what you're doing is you're saying the action's unrestricted. My performance of the action is unrestricted. Right? So she'll conclude on that point. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.